If you want to kill an NFT, you should FUD it. On October 16th, 2021, Jungle Freaks was born. It's your run-of-the-mill 10,000 unit NFT collection, but with a slight twist. All the art was hand-drawn by George Trosley, the legendary Hustler magazine cartoonist. The project was launched by Trosley's son, George III, also known as the Prince. If the endless number of rug pulls and scams were the ocean, then an NFT project with a doxed founder was like a life raft. And people were quick to grab on.
The Discord was just moving. Like, I want to say I tried to edit the Discord to like slow it down to like a 60-minute slow-mo, just because like I wanted to make an announcement. And like a bug, like, you know, the running joke was like we broke the channel, but it was at like 1 million messages in the jungle. So we had to reset the jungle. I don't even know what that right now. It's probably something ridiculous.
Right out of the gate, the project garnered a number of big-name supporters. One such supporter, Alex Becker, posted multiple bullish tweets suggesting that Jungle Freaks would become a blue-chip project like Bored Ape Yacht Club. In the first 2 weeks of trading, Jungle Freaks steadily rose from a mint price of 0.07 ETH to a floor price of about 1.5 ETH. It seemed like the project was destined to cross the 10 ETH threshold. On the morning of November 1st, Jungle Freaks owners awoke to horrific news. Members of the NFT community dug up some of Trosley's old cartoons, and the shocking imagery seemed to suggest that Trosley was a racist. People began selling their freaks in droves and disavowing themselves from the project. Zeneca, one of the most influential NFT collectors, wrote a long Twitter thread announcing the death of Jungle Freaks. Elijah Wood, yes, that Elijah Wood, had previously tweeted support for Jungle Freaks, but he too disavowed the project once the cartoons surfaced. How did the Prince respond? Initially, he released a response apologizing for his father's old cartoons and expressing his father's regret for making them. But a couple days later, the Trosleys put out a blog post that contradicted the previous response. They sought to clarify that Hustler magazine and its founder, Larry Flynt, were champions of progressive causes. Raising awareness of racism in America was one such cause, and the cartoons served this purpose by being intentionally grotesque.
These cartoons were produced right after I had gone under exclusive contract with a new magazine called Hustler. Larry Flynt asked us to be as outrageous as possible, calling attention to social injustices in America, and these cartoons depict that.
As proof, Trosley Sr. provided several other cartoons he had drawn over the years, calling attention to issues such as white supremacy, child abuse in the church, police brutality, and gun control. In the wake of the Jungle Freaks crash, there were a lot of questions. It almost seemed like the racism FUD was an intentional, malicious attack. After all, why did someone choose those specific cartoons, which were easy to take out of context? If the attack was intentional, there was only one suspect, Victor Caceres, better known by his screen name, Print My Mint. In 2021, Print My Mint was working in the NFT space as a promoter. Projects would hire him to raise awareness of their NFTs on social media and funnel individuals into their Discord servers. And he was paid very well for this service. For a contract signed with Cultists by Hungry Ghost, Print was to be paid an 8% commission on the total NFT mint sales of the project. So for a typical project with 10,000 NFTs, if 9,500 of them were sold to the public at a typical mint price of 0.1 ETH, then Print My Mint would be paid 76 Ethereum. When this agreement was signed in October 2021, that was worth $300,000. But where things start to get shady is that Print My Mint never disclosed his financial interest when promoting these projects. In this thread from October 27th, 2 days after signing the agreement with Hungry Ghost, Print My Mint lays out the entire investment case for their NFTs. He frames it as him wanting to bring a great investment opportunity to his loyal followers, but he left out the part that mentions they were paying him to tweet that thread. Print My Mint was hired by the Prince to promote Jungle Freaks, but during the last few days of October, something happened. Print My Mint had a falling out with the Prince, and he was forced out of Jungle Freaks. Inside sources tell me that the Prince had learned of fraud allegations against Print My Mint, including from the aforementioned Hungry Ghost project, and he decided to part ways with him before any negative news could blow back onto Jungle Freaks. Print My Mint quickly moved to dump all of his freaks, selling his prized avatar freak at 9 p.m. Halloween night for 12 ETH. When the sun rose the next morning, the racism FUD was in full swing, but fortunately for Print My Mint, he managed to sell all of his freaks before the crash. The timing of his sales seemed a bit too good. As part of my investigation, I spoke with multiple individuals intimately familiar with Print My Mint's operations and his dismissal from Jungle Freaks. No one I spoke with could prove the racism allegations came from him, but all felt certain it was definitely him. One source went as far as to allege that Print My Mint is a known serial crypto fraudster.
It's tricky to say about Print My Mint. I think I'd need some sort of NDA on it since he's marked on a lot of different databases as a threat actor. I can give you the threat profile along with what happened with Jungle Freaks. Print My Mint was caught doing fraud on a number of projects, and Prince didn't want that type of FUD pointed towards him, so he made Print My Mint leave.
How are you defining fraud in this case?
Let's get in an NDA.
A non-disclosure agreement?
Yes.
What do you mean by he's marked in different databases as a threat actor?
Well, he did a lot of malicious activity, and that was reported to IC3 and other government agencies to monitor. Back in the day, people would alert me on his scams he'd run in his alpha group weekly, but three-letter agencies don't care if it's under 1 million.
I would like to note that I reached out to Print My Mint to get his side of the story, but he never responded. If you want to kill an NFT, you should abandon it. Even though the outlook was bleak, the Prince and his remaining Jungle Freaks continued on. Throughout 2022, Jungle Freaks launched several initiatives to try to rebuild the project, but none of it was enough. Crypto and NFTs were in a full-blown bear market. As the money faded, so too did participation in the community. On the afternoon of September 8, 2022, the community was dealt its worst blow yet. The Prince had announced that the Jungle Freaks project had been acquired by Calidor Media Group, a media company managed by an unknown community member named Ken Cantrell. Naturally, emotions were mixed. Some felt optimistic that funding from the new ownership group could take the project to the next level. Immediately after taking control, Ken laid out his vision to transform Jungle Freaks from an NFT to a global IP brand encompassing television, gaming, merchandise, and metaverse deployment. Others, however, felt that the Prince was turning his back on the community he created. Some went as far as to suggest that Prince was rugging everyone. The Prince would post his final Discord message on November 29, 2022. He disappeared without saying goodbye. Like everything else in this story, the sale of Jungle Freaks wasn't what it seemed. It turned out that Jungle Freaks wasn't sold. The Prince gave it to Ken for free. In the weeks leading up to the transfer, Prince had already been in talks to transfer the project over to a group of 5 senior community members. This deal came with an additional clause. The Prince would leave the new team with monetary resources to help them rebuild Jungle Freaks. But the deal with Ken didn't require any funds to be added. The Prince could transfer the project and keep the money. If you want to kill an NFT, you should loot it. I made a couple attempts to reach out to Ken to get his side of the story, but each time I messaged him, he insisted we had to wait a couple more weeks for him to complete a big deal for Jungle Freaks. We never spoke, and no big deals ever materialized. Funny enough, this perfectly summarizes the way Ken operates. Every big thing Ken promises is always just a couple more weeks away, but then never happens. For example, there was the question of pay for the Discord mods. After a couple months of negotiations, Ken signed an agreement to pay the 3 mods. Except the mods never got paid in full, and Ken had them kicked from the Discord server, presumably to avoid paying them further. What makes this even worse is that Ken had been actively withdrawing funds from the Jungle Freaks wallet funds that should have gone to paying the mods. Then there was the Jungle Freaks TV show. Ken announced the show immediately after taking control of the project. But after a few months, all he had to show for it was some AI-generated art. The problem with this is twofold. First, the show wasn't going to use the actual NFT artwork. And second, US copyright law clearly states that you can't retain the copyright to AI-generated art. As one Jungle Freaks insider put it, if you were using AI in art and not retaining copyrights, then what the fuck is the point in owning the IP in the first place? Unbelievably brain dead. During an AMA on February 9, 2023, Ken announced that Cameron Hood would serve as art director of the Jungle Freaks TV show. This was a big deal because Cameron's credits include major projects such as Shark Tale, How to Train Your Dragon, Kung Fu Panda 2, and Despicable Me 2. However, after this AMA, we never heard from Cameron again. Multiple sources tell me that Ken insulted Cameron a week later and he quit the project. Ken never disclosed that Cameron was off the project. Remember when I said Ken avoided using the NFT artwork for the TV show? Well, in an effort to placate the angry community members, Ken launched a podcast show featuring the official NFT artwork. You can guess this poor excuse for a show didn't go over well with holders.
All right, buddy, you're on.
Hi everyone. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Kiernan.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you something.
We don't care.
At some point, the idea for a TV show changed into becoming a full-fledged animated movie. On March 31st, Ken announced two well-known movie executives would be coming on board, producer Steven Tyler Selene and writer Stephen Mayer. But like Cameron Hood, it seems neither of these guys have stuck around. Sources tell me that they haven't officially left the project, but they are planning to bail as soon as Ken pays them money contractually owed to them. And then there's the question of who actually owns the Jungle Freaks project. You see, Ken himself doesn't own Jungle Freaks. According to various sources and leaked documents, I've managed to piece together the following org chart.
Please note that the percentages in these pie graphs do not add up to 100% because the math was done by
Ken Cantrill.
On May 26, 2023, Ken posted his last message to the Discord server before disappearing for good. The community had once again been abandoned. Though Ken's buffoonery is well established at this point, we haven't addressed the key issue here, his motivation. Why does some guy take over a completely unknown NFT project with little following and try to turn it into a global IP brand? One answer is that Jungle Freaks is part of a larger scheme. Behind the scenes, Ken has been working with controversial Hong Kong investment banker Jason Tiong and Australian cartoon animator Peter Visca. The pair were allegedly pushing for Calidor Media Group to do an IPO based on the value of different low-quality media assets they owned, including Jungle Freaks. These documents on screen reveal an appraisal of Jungle Freak Project, they couldn't even get the name right, by a financial firm in Hong Kong, attributing a value of $10 million to the project. This valuation is very clearly overinflated based on nonsensical comps and cash flow forecast inputs. But I'm told it hasn't stopped Ken from using it to try to raise money for Calidor Media Group. But another motivating factor may be Ken's insecurity. Over the past number of years, Ken has always worked within the shadow of his boss, Peter Visca. He's attempted to launch 3 different media companies, but none have succeeded. From talking to those who have gotten to know Ken, it seems that he just wants to prove he's a real businessman and can be a CEO. Ken maintains that he is not a scammer, but the community doesn't see it that way. In Ken, they see a man that took advantage of them, a man that lied to them, and a man that stole from them. The Discord community has completely turned on Ken, to the point that they doxed his home address, made emojis out of pictures of his daughter, and even reported him to the SEC for tax fraud. It's possible that Ken's reign has been an exercise in incompetence rather than intentional fraud, but it doesn't matter. The damage has been done. Only time will tell if the Jungle Freaks community will be able to stage some sort of revival. Now you know how to kill an NFT. Thanks for watching.